You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. Now answer me honestly. When was the last time you felt truly connected to someone? I'm not talking about conversation, laughter, or spending time together. I'm talking about feeling truly seen, understood, at peace being exactly who you are. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't show on the outside. It doesn't make a sound. It doesn't draw attention. Nobody notices. You continue living your routine, talking to people, answering messages, maybe even posting things as if everything is fine. But inside there's an emptiness that's hard to explain. And the strangest thing is that often you don't even know where it comes from. You just feel it. You feel like something doesn't fit. That something is missing. That there's an invisible distance between you and the world. As if you were physically present, but emotionally somewhere else. And that's tiring. It's exhausting trying to connect and not being able to. It's exhausting feeling like nobody really understands you. It's exhausting having so much inside you and not knowing how to express it. But let me tell you something important. This is not weakness. This is a sign that a deeper disconnect is happening, not just with the people around you, but with yourself. Because the truth is, nobody teaches us how to deal with what we feel. Nobody teaches us to understand our own emotions, to listen to our own silence, to recognize what's hidden inside. We learn to move on, to adapt, to be strong, to keep going. But we rarely learn to find ourselves. And then, little by little, without realizing it, you begin to drift away from yourself. You start ignoring what you feel, swallowing your emotions, molding yourself to fit into environments, relationships, and expectations. You gradually let go of parts of yourself until a point is reached where you no longer know who you really are. And when that happens, loneliness appears, even with people nearby, even with everything working in your life, because it's not about the quantity of people. It's about the depth of connection, and real connection begins within. Perhaps you are trying to fill this void with distractions, with shallow conversations, with routine, with constant busyness. Trying not to feel, trying not to look, trying to escape from something that, deep down, is still there. Waiting. And the more you run away, the stronger that feeling becomes, quieter, but also more present. It's as if there's a part of you craving attention, a part that wants to be heard, understood, and embraced. But at the same time, there's a blockage, something preventing that access. And this blockage didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built over time, through experiences, disappointments, moments when you needed to shut yourself off to keep going, moments when showing who you really were seemed too risky. So you protected yourself. He created versions of himself that were more acceptable, safer, and more adaptable. And that helped you survive. But maybe that's preventing you from connecting right now. Because when you're not being completely true to yourself, how could anyone really reach you? Do you see how this is starting to make sense? This feeling of loneliness may not be about being alone, but about not being whole. And as long as you don't feel whole, no connection seems enough. No presence can fill that void. No relationship reaches that deeper place. And this is exactly where many people get lost. Because they start to believe that the problem lies in the world, in people, in circumstances. But what if the root is something else? What if this loneliness is trying to show you something you haven't noticed yet? Something more internal, more silent, more true. Because maybe what you're feeling right now isn't the absence of someone. Perhaps it's an absence of oneself. And if that's true, then the question stops being, why doesn't anyone understand me? And starts to transform into something much deeper. And you know what makes all this even more confusing? It's realizing that, even feeling all this, you keep functioning. You follow your routine, talk to people, laugh when you need to, answer messages. And on the outside, no one would say there's anything wrong. But inside, there's a constant feeling of disconnection, as if you're living on autopilot without really feeling present. And that makes you wonder if the problem is you. But that's not the case. This happens to more people than you imagine. And many don't even realize why. They live like this for years, carrying a silent emptiness, thinking it's just a phase, or worse, believing that feeling this way is too normal to question. But it's not about being normal. It's about being ignored. This type of emotional loneliness hides precisely in the routine, the rush, the distractions of everyday life. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And that's why it goes unnoticed. Some people try to fill this void with constant activity, others with external validation, others with relationships that seem intense but aren't deep. And even then, when everything falls silent, the emptiness returns. Because it's not outside. It's inside, waiting to be understood. And while that doesn't happen, the feeling remains there, discreet, but persistent, accompanying you even in moments when you should feel good. And perhaps, now that you're hearing this, something is starting to make more sense within you, because there's something that almost no one explains clearly. Loneliness isn't a lack of people. It's a lack of connection. And when you start to realize that, a lot changes inside you. It's no longer about how many people are around you, how many messages you receive, or how many moments you share. You can be in a crowded environment, talking, smiling, participating, and still feel like no one really reaches you on the inside. This happens because the connection your soul seeks isn't superficial. It's not about physical presence, it's about emotional, energetic, genuine presence. It's when you can lower your defenses, stop constantly explaining yourself, and simply exist without fear of judgment. And when that doesn't happen, this strange feeling of being alone while accompanied arises. In real life, many people live surrounded by others yet disconnected. Relationships are based on appearances, expectations, and filtered versions of who each person is. And then you enter this game too, often without realizing it, trying to fit in, trying to maintain connections, but giving up important parts of yourself. And the more you do this, the more the real connection fades away, because true connection requires truth. And truth requires courage. Courage to show yourself, to acknowledge yourself, to look inward without running away. But if at some point in your life you learned that being yourself wasn't safe, then it's natural that today you have difficulty connecting deeply. And this is exactly where most people start, to get lost without realizing it. And when you start to lose yourself on this path, there's a silent cause that almost no one notices, but that completely changes how you feel inside: internal disconnection. Because before connecting with someone, you need to be at least minimally connected with yourself. And this is where everything starts to get muddled. Sometimes you don't even know what you feel. So how could anyone understand you? In the rush of real life, you've learned to ignore internal signals. You've learned to keep going even when tired, to smile even when you don't feel like it, to say everything is fine when deep down, it's not. But every time you do this, you distance yourself a little further from yourself. You lose emotional clarity, you become confused. You stop recognizing what is sadness, what is emptiness, what is a need for connection. And without realizing it, you start living on emotional autopilot. You feel something, but you can't name it. Something bothers you, but you don't understand why. There's a weight, but you can't explain where it comes from. And this creates an invisible barrier, because if you can't access what's inside you, no one from the outside can access it either. This has nothing to do with weakness. It has to do with a lack of emotional awareness, something that has never been taught. Practical spirituality begins precisely here, the moment you stop running away and start observing. You begin to feel with presence, without judgment, without rushing to solve things, simply acknowledging. Because the more you understand yourself, the closer you get to yourself. And the more space you create for real connections, But until that reconnection happens, the tendency is to continue searching outside for something that can only be accessed within. And that's where the cycle repeats itself. Relationships that don't fulfill, conversations that don't deepen, moments that pass but don't leave a mark. Now tell me, did this make sense to you? If any part of this resonated with you, comment, "I feel this," or even, "I want to understand myself better." Because recognizing it is the first step. And what comes next can change a lot. And alongside this internal disconnect, there's another, even more subtle layer that reinforces this emptiness: social masks. Because at some point in your life, you realize that being completely true to yourself wasn't always safe. So almost without realizing it, you started adjusting your mannerisms, your tone, your reactions, to fit in better, to avoid conflict, to be accepted. And so, little by little, you got used to showing a version of yourself that isn't the real you. In real life, this seems harmless. You answer everything's fine when someone asks, even when it's not. You laugh at things you don't even find that funny, agree with things that don't make sense to you, and avoid talking about how you truly feel. And this creates a distance between who you are inside and what you show on the outside. A distance that, over time, begins to weigh you down, because maintaining a mask requires energy. It requires control, it requires vigilance. It requires you to always be alert so as not to slip up and show something you consider too vulnerable. And that's exhausting. Exhausting in a silent, profound way. Your mind continues to function, but your emotions become overwhelmed because they can't find a safe space to express themselves. And the hardest part is that when someone gets close to you, that person isn't connecting with who you really are. They're connecting with the version you've learned to show. And that's why, even when you're in a relationship, even when you're talking, even when you're spending time together, something still feels empty. Because deep down, you know you're not being fully seen. Practical spirituality speaks a lot about truth, about presence, about authenticity. But this doesn't begin outside. It begins the moment you have the courage to recognize these masks. Not to judge yourself, but to understand where they came from, what they tried to protect, and if they still make sense today. Because as long as you continue hiding to be accepted, this feeling of loneliness will hardly disappear. And behind these masks, there is something even deeper underpinning it all: the fear of opening up. Because at some point in your journey, you tried to be true to yourself, tried to show what you felt, tried to genuinely expose yourself. And it wasn't received as you expected. Perhaps it was ignored, minimized, misinterpreted, or even rejected. And this experience left a mark, an emotional memory that your subconscious registered as a warning. It's not safe to show yourself completely. And then, without realizing it, you began to protect yourself. Not consciously, but automatically. You started filtering what you say, what you feel, what you show. You created a subtle barrier between what's inside and what can be seen. Because deep down, you want to be understood. But you're afraid of being rejected. This internal conflict is much more common than it seems. One part of you desires deep connection, wants to be welcomed, seen, truly understood. But another part, marked by past experiences, does everything to avoid any risk. And it is precisely this division that generates this feeling of isolation. Even when you are close to someone. In real life, this manifests itself in small behaviors. You start a deeper conversation, but you back away. You feel like opening up, but you change the subject. You want to say what you really feel, but you freeze, thinking about how the other person might react. And so, you become silent, limiting yourself, keeping yourself in a safe, but lonely space. Emotional healing begins when you recognize this pattern without blaming yourself. When you understand that this fear didn't arise from nothing, it was learned. And everything that has been learned can be given new meaning. Practical spirituality comes in exactly at this point, bringing awareness to these blockages, embracing what has been hurt, and gradually rebuilding the confidence that being yourself no longer needs to be dangerous. But as long as that fear continues to guide your choices, you may be surrounded by people, but never fully connected. And when this fear of opening up mixes with the way relationships happen today, another layer of this silent loneliness emerges: superficial relationships. Because let's be honest, nowadays lots of talk, but little real connection. You talk to many people, exchange messages all the time, share moments, but deep down, few of these interactions really touch you. In real life, everything has become faster, more accessible, more immediate. But at the same time, it has become more superficial. Conversations revolve around the basics, the automatic, what is comfortable. Little room for vulnerability, little room for truth, little room for depth. And when you try to go further, you often feel that the other person doesn't keep up, doesn't understand, or is simply not available for that kind of connection. And this creates internal wear and tear. Because you start to adapt to this pattern. You start to get into this rhythm of superficial relationships just to avoid feeling alone. But ironically, that's exactly what maintains the loneliness. You are present, but you are not really being seen. You are listening, but you are not really being heard. Practical spirituality invites us to observe this with greater awareness. It's not about blaming the world or people, but understanding how you are positioning yourself within these relationships. Are you also avoiding depth? Are you, for protection, remaining superficial? Because true connection requires presence, requires intention, requires openness, and this is not always comfortable. But it is necessary. And perhaps now you're beginning to realize how many relationships around you don't go beyond that level. How many conversations don't get to what really matters. How many times you felt empty even after talking to someone. If this resonated with you, comment below, "I want real connection," or even enough of superficiality. Because recognizing this can be the beginning of a much deeper change than it seems. And it's at this point that everything starts to become clearer. Because it's no longer just an idea, it starts to become something you identify with. So I want you to stop for a moment and be completely honest with yourself. Do you feel like nobody really knows you? That people know parts of you, versions of you, but not who you are in your entirety? There's a difference between being seen and being truly recognized. And maybe that's exactly what you're feeling, and there's more. Do you feel like you're always holding something back inside? As if you have thoughts, emotions, truths that are never fully expressed? As if there's always a filter, a block, an invisible limit that prevents you from going further? This is not a coincidence. This is a repeating emotional pattern. In practice, this manifests itself very subtly. You think about saying something deeper, but you change the subject. You feel the urge to open up, but you control yourself. You want to be genuine, but you adapt to the moment, the environment, the other person's expectations. And so you accumulate things inside you. You keep them, postponing them, silently carrying a weight that no one sees. And the more you hold on, the more distant you feel. Because there is no real connection where there is no truth. And there is no truth where there is constant containment. Your emotional energy begins to get trapped. Your mind becomes full. Your heart becomes overwhelmed. And all of this transforms into that feeling of emptiness that you can't explain. Practical spirituality speaks a lot about presence and authenticity. But it begins with this recognition, realizing how much you have been hiding, even from yourself. Not by conscious choice, but for protection, out of habit, out of fear. But the problem is that this protection, which was once necessary, may now be distancing you from exactly what you most desire. Now, tell me honestly, does this describe you? If so, comment "nobody really knows me," or even "I keep everything to myself." Because putting it out there, even in just a few words, already begins to break this silent cycle. And this is where a silent, yet extremely powerful shift happens within you. Because maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't that nobody understands you, but that you've never had the space to be who you truly are. And when you look at it from this angle, everything starts to take on a new meaning. It's not that you're difficult to understand or that there's something wrong with you. It's that, at many points in your life, being yourself wasn't embraced as it should have been. Perhaps you grew up in environments where you needed to adapt to be accepted. Perhaps you learned early on that showing your feelings could lead to judgment, rejection, or indifference. And so, as a form of protection, you began to mold yourself. You started to fit in, to hide parts of yourself, to adjust your essence to fit what was expected. And it worked. It helped you stay safe. But it also came at a price, because every time you couldn't be who you truly are, a part of you fell silent. A part that wanted to express itself, that wanted to be seen, that wanted to exist authentically. And over time, this lack of space created this feeling of emptiness, of disconnection, of loneliness that you feel today. Emotional healing begins when you acknowledge this without blaming yourself. When you understand that it wasn't a lack of self-worth, but a lack of space. Practical spirituality invites you precisely to this movement, to stop seeking external validation and begin creating within yourself that safe space that may never have existed outside. Because when you begin to allow yourself to be, without filters, without masks, without fear, something changes in your energy. Something aligns, and what previously seemed like a lack of connection begins to reveal a much deeper truth. And perhaps now you're beginning to realize something that previously seemed invisible. Loneliness doesn't disappear when you find someone. It begins to fade when you begin to find yourself. Because, deep down, it's not about who's by your side. It's about how present you are within yourself. It's about how much you listen to yourself, understand yourself, and embrace yourself without judgment. In real life, we've been conditioned to seek outside what can only be built within. Affection, validation, belonging. All of that has internal roots. Practical spirituality isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about returning to oneself with awareness. It's about creating an inner space where you can exist without masks, without fear, without needing to diminish yourself to fit in. And when that space begins to be created, something naturally changes. You stop accepting superficial connections. You start valuing what is true. You begin to position yourself with more authenticity. Not because someone taught you, but because you finally recognized yourself. And from that point on, the connections that enter your life begin to reflect this new level of emotional awareness. So if all of this made sense to you, maybe this is the moment to take a different step. Not outward, but inward. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of emotional healing, self-knowledge, and spiritual growth in practice. And if you've made it this far, comment, "I choose to find myself," or even "enough of hiding." That will show me that you really connected with this message. And of course, leave a like if this video spoke to you in any way. Because that way more people who are going through this can also find this content. And maybe, amidst so much disconnection, this is the beginning of something much more genuine within you.